All right, so my name is Grayson Calva-Despard. I'm doing my final project on Native American land rights. My primary source is the Declaration of Indian Purpose, written in 1961. Now, this is an official document written by representatives from almost every major native nation in the U.S. The whole point of the Declaration is to emphasize that Native Americans have the right to control their land, and it calls for the U.S. government to recognize these nations as sovereign. Now, this quote from it kind of summarizes their whole uh, goal with this declaration. And in short, the Indians ask for assistance, technical and financial, for the time needed, however long that may be, to regain in the America of the space age some measure of the adjustments they enjoyed as the original possessors of their native land. Now this was written by the American Indian Chicago Conference, kind of as a collective. It doesn't have a single author. This is written by representatives from several tribes, and this was done kind of on purpose to show that this is not just one small group of people wanting something, and this is a massive issue that is shared throughout the country. My secondary source is Late Homesteading, Native Land Disposition Through Strategic Occupation, written by Douglas W. Allen and Brian Leonard. This article kind of just shows that how the U.S. government used homesteading laws to take native land. That they argue that this government strategically created near permanent claims on native land that are almost impossible to do or undo, and that this was a deliberate plan to eliminate native sovereignty. And then the quote I used was questionable federal land policies in the late 19th century dispossessed massive amounts of indigenous land and exposed the federal government to legal rather than violent conflict. Late homesteading was used to make the disposition permanent, even in cases where illegal defeat eventually occurred. And then on this map here of most of the west of the US, you just see how much land is taken. And that is just an enormous amount. And most of it is not just actually given fairly. Now, our other secondary source is Sovereignty and Land Rights of Indigenous People in the United States, written by Wayne Edwards. This is a book that focuses on defining what sovereignty is, and explores kind of the past treaties between the U.S. Government and Native tribes. And it also shows that losing territory it's more than just land lost. There's more to it than just losing the land and having to move. This is people's history. This is their culture. They've been there for generations. And just being forced off it to move somewhere else is not just like moving San Diego from your hometown. This is just destroying for their like history and culture. And then this painting right here is of the Treaty of with the Delawares in 1778. I believe this is the first official treaty with natives and settlers, and this was later broken within 4 years. So I guess this kind of started this whole history. So some rhetorical appeals with the ethos, pathos logos. With ethos, they use very, especially in the Declaration, they use a lot of formal language to make it seem more official and give it more legitimately. And the secondary articles, they try to build credibility with like showing or referencing expert knowledge and then like showing lived experiences and then just trying to make it more authentic so that the audience kind of trusts the narrative more. And then pathos is used extensively to just build more sympathy for their cause, just by showing generations of injustices and inequalities. This quote I took from the Declaration of Indian Purpose shows it says, "We have watched our old people die without hope, and our children grow up without the future they were promised," which is just the whole goal is just to show how serious this issue is. And then some logos, like we saw with statistics and facts with the previously shown map, and all of your claims are backed up with evidence, which is just what you need to support it. Some other strategies, tone is used extensively. It kind of builds suspense from being humorous and then becoming serious, which kind of emphasizes that it is a serious issue. And because it starts off as maybe sound like a joke, but it's not. And then irony is just shows the contradictions, shows Um, the manipulation emphasizes the issue, and it uses sarcasm and irony to emphasize that. And then framing, where all the articles kind of support each other in the texts, um, to show that it's not just one group that this is having to do. This is not an isolated event. This is a collective of hundreds of thousands of people that are affected by this and have this issue. So that's also good. Some evidence, some quotes I took were with maps. This is also reference to the map shown previously with the first secondary article. The map shows that some sessions were enormous in size, while others were quite small. In total, there are around 700 sessions in the United States, with about 400 taking place in the West, most of them prior to 1890. And that's just describing the map that we already saw. And then cause and effect. We believe that our first responsibility is to ourselves. We know what is best for our people and our communities, and we insist on the right to control our own affairs. This is from the Declaration of Indian Purpose, and it just shows that if they're able to control their communities, then they can control their outcome. While instead of right now, they have very little control, very little authority, and their futures are being decided by other people. Historical context is also found in especially the second article with the forced relocations and then court rulings that shaped kind of their sovereignty that they didn't really have a say in. And then a really good rebuttal I found in Allen and Leonard's work was perhaps late homesteading was an important mechanism for pushing settlers into territories that remained sparsely populated in the 1890s and had little to do with tribal land takings. This kind of shows how that they acknowledge that homesteading was likely not a direct attack, that sole purpose was to dispossess native tribes, and that it could have just been a neutral policy to develop unused land to make or to help move people into the vast amount of land that they have out west. And to conclude, Native American land rights and sovereignty are a long and storied history that highlight the past inequalities and the continued struggle for Native American autonomy and recognition. Thank you.